We were joking about using rule and nothing more is leading up to So it connects to that room. I don't see the
We are here not only to mourn death, but also to celebrate life. For that is what Kenneth Schumacher would have wanted. It was who he was. Today we focus not just upon sadness, but also the power of love and the ability to go on living even in the face of loss. Today, even as we realize how much each person here has lost, we also acknowledge and express gratitude for the life of a solid, humble husband, father, grandfather, brother, and friend. With Ruth, his superhero wife, with Trevor and Elise and Devin and Jeff, his hereafter, with Laura, Rylan, Anya, and Julie, his legacy, with Paul and Sue and Mary and Rebecca, with all of his adoptive and by marriage family, with the Tuttles and Patty Perry and countless nieces and nephews, beloved friends. Everybody was family. And he is, all he was, is in this room now, living and vibrant. We realize we have so much for which to be grateful. It has been said, for he whom we love and lose is no longer where he was before, but he is now wherever we are. And so with the Jewish tradition, and with the tradition of science and knowledge and all the many different paths that he was an expert in, we share some scriptures and poems and some memories from family and friends. Whether one is religious or not, we tend to recite the 23rd chapter of the book of Psalms, which is venerated by Jews and Christians alike. It is known by heart by countless millions of people, and it is recited when they find themselves in a situation of pain or trauma. Psalm 23 is a small psalm. It contains merely 6 sentences, 57 Hebrew words. However, it has become a cherished gem of so many people and has helped to lift us out of the abyss of depression and dejection. For those who would like to follow along, please join. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Ecclesiastes has also taught us l'chol zman ve'et l'chol chefetz tachat hashamayim. For everything there is a time and a purpose, a time for every experience under heaven, a time for being born and a time for dying, a time for planting and a time for uprooting that which has been planted, and he knew about that, a time for destroying and a time for healing, a time for tearing down and a time for building up, a time for weeping and a time for laughing, a time for wailing and a time for dancing, a time for throwing stones and a time for gathering stones, a time for embracing and a time to refrain from embraces, a time for seeking and a time for losing, a time for keeping and a time for discarding, a time for tearing and a time for sowing, a time for silence and a time for speaking, a time for loving, and yes, a time for hating, a time for war, and a time for peace. Washington Irving has written, "There is a sacredness in tears. They are not the mark of weakness, but of power. They speak more eloquently than 10,000 tongues. They are messengers of overwhelming grief, of deep contrition, and unspeakable love." And I don't know, I was walking out of the house and I said, I'm going back for Benjamin Franklin. I think he would like Benjamin Franklin, who said, "We are spirits that bodies should be lent us, while they can afford us pleasure, assist us in acquiring knowledge or in doing good to our fellow creatures. It's a kind and benevolent act of God. When they, our bodies, become unfit for these purposes and afford us pain instead of pleasure, instead of an aid, they become an encumbrance and answer none of the intentions for which they were given. It is equally kind and benevolent that a way is provided by which we may get rid of them. Death is that way. Our friend and we were invited abroad on a party of pleasure, which is to last forever. His chair was ready first, and he has gone before us. We could not all conveniently start together, so why should you and I be grieved at this, since we are all soon to follow, and we know where to find him." Merritt Malloy, the poet, has written, "When I die, give what is left of me away to children and old men that wait to die. And if you need to cry, cry for your brother walking the street beside you. And when you need me, put your arms around anyone and give them what you need to give me. I want to leave you something better than words or sounds. Look for me in the people I've known or loved. And if you cannot give me away, at least let me live in your eyes and not on your mind. You can love me most by letting hands touch hands, by letting bodies touch bodies, and letting go of children that need to be free. Love doesn't die, people do. So when all that is left of me is love, give me away." And finally, Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross wrote to a child who had cancer. And she wrote, "When we have done all the work with which we were sent to earth to do, we are allowed to shed our body, which imprisons our soul like a cocoon encloses the future butterfly. And when the time is right, We can let go of it, and we will be free of pain, free of fear and worries, free as a very beautiful butterfly, returning home to God. Observant Jews might notice the convergence of the Schumacher family's challenging last few weeks with the period on the Jewish calendar which we call Bein HaMitzarim, between the straits. We are amidst the period on the Jewish calendar called the 3 weeks of mourning, which begins in this Hebrew month Tammuz, and which ends in the next month, Av, on the 9th of Av, Tisha B'Av. These days commemorate the destruction of the temples of old. The first blow was in mid-Tammuz, and the final destruction in exile in the 9th day of Av. And traditional Jews weep and mourn and reflect. And with perfect symmetry, I believe, Ruth and Trevor and Devin, Paul and Mary, everyone has found themselves Bein HaMitzarim, between these straits. As Ken's health waned, as he and his family faced critical life and death decisions, and as his tired, huge heart slowed, they too have wept and mourned. In perfect syncopation with the Jewish calendar, the Schumachers marked exile, mourning, and loss. It is a time of the heart when we allow ourselves to feel sorrows of the world. It is the time when the spent flower falls to earth and we do not yet know when new seeds will come. And so it is a fitting time to bid farewell. We are in the last days of this Hebrew month, Tammuz. It has a long mythic history associating with mourning. Echoing the ancient Near Eastern mourning of the god Tammuz, Israel rewrote this pagan mythology into our own lore. One ancient legend says that these are the very days that Adam and Eve were exiled from Eden. Others say that this is the period that the Israelites danced around the golden calf, leading to 40 years of wandering. Another story claims that this was the time that Moses struck a rock for water and was therefore forbidden to enter the promised land. Now, while Ken wasn't Jewish, I believe he would have enjoyed all these mythical stories. He was not only supportive of Ruth's involvement of Temple Beth Or, he was a part of it. He recently helped host a picnic for our temple volunteers. And whenever he came here with Ruth, he would just pitch in the kitchen and help out. Fittingly, Ruth, his partner of 56 years of marriage, next week's, enjoyed whatever adventures that Ken had in store for her. As she said, he took her down paths of which she never dreamed. From teaching her about artistic sewer covers, to trains, to weather, or traffic patterns, he showed her and this family the world. His photographic memory astounded all who knew him, and his kindness put everyone at ease. He always found a way to be useful and helpful to those around him, and excelled at so many different jobs, from NCR to doing taxes to agronomy and horticulture. He supported his kids in all of their avocations, and he was a wonderful pop-pop to each grandchild, whether they wanted to give him a pedicure or have him watch horseback riding, soccer, baseball, or taekwondo. Devin said she could just look up even at a tennis practice, and she'd look out and Ken would be there to support her. And Trevor said that his dad had tremendous skills, could fix anything, do woodwork, restore furniture, and grow anything. He was not only a man for all seasons, but what we in the Jewish tradition call a mensch, a good man. Although I'm told sometimes he could show his grumpy side to his bride. She loved him, and that was a sign of his love for you, for he was secure in your love. It's a tribute to a great good man that you were there by his side as he breathed his last, and that you supported him in his decisions of when to live and what is quality of life. I feel sure he had no wish to be a burden on anyone in sickness, and so you all honored and gave him permission to say goodbye. It is fitting that we mourn Ken during the 3 weeks. It will be different now living without him. We are glad that he is no longer struggling, but we know that the world will be a little darker and a little less warm every day hereafter without him. Back to the Jewish tradition, the rabbis say about this period, Min HaMitzarim, that when the temple was finally burning, finally going to the ground, it was the last minute, and the Romans were breaking through the gates. The priests went into the temple courtyard with the treasured keys to the temple. They didn't want the Romans, their enemies, to have them, and so they threw them up, saying, "Holy One, we can no longer take care of these, and so we return them to you." Somehow, at the height of the arc of the priest's throw, the keys, they say, disappeared. They will be returned, our tradition says, only in the perfect day when we finally have peace, when the temple of peace is finally built. All of those who sit here today gave all in their care to Ken. But when the temple of his body could no longer hold up, you entrusted his soul to God. As he breathed his last, you, his family, said, "Holy One, we can no longer keep him in this mortal world, and so we entrust him to you in the world to come." At moments when we are in most pain, we cannot always hold on to our deepest, most joyful parts of ourselves. And so we yield ourselves up, our suffering, and hoping that someone will take the keys to our hearts until we are ready to have them back. We now throw those keys upward, knowing, hoping, praying that we are able to receive them back when it is time. As the spent flower of Tammuz now falls to the earth, we know that the best seeds will someday sprout out of all of the wonderful memories that you carry with you, all of the good and solid values that he represented and passed on to you, all of the amazing brilliance that he shared with you, and the pure love that he had for each and every person here. His favorite song, I'm told, is 500 Miles Away from Home, or The Railroader's Lament. The simple, repetitive lyrics offer a lament by a traveler who is far from home, who invites his partner to come and visit their world. He believes that their love is so special and that distance does not matter. While we can no longer see Kenneth Schumacher, we pray that in the final days of perfection, we will find him out there tending, perhaps coming up with some new variation in the Garden of Paradise, while regaling the angels with railroad lore. Until then, we celebrate his life here on earth and keep his memory and his stories and his goodness alive. And so we have some special memories to share with you today from friends and loved ones who have asked us to read some of them, as well as from individuals themselves. And we're going to see if Trevor and Devin are going to do their thing.
When Dad's heart started getting weaker a year ago, I thought forward to this inevitable day, to how tough it would be to write a eulogy. I knew the emotions would be hard, but beyond that, how do you sum up a man's life, especially a man like Dad, who seemed to live so many of them? From childhood summers on an aunt and uncle's farm because his parents didn't have the money to support him and his younger siblings. From high school days of dyeing his beard and mustache green when they told him he'd have to shave it off within 72 hours. Dad loved opportunities to defy authority. From an endless enjoyment of all things train-related, a passion that led him on many adventures, and to form a multi-decade-long friendship with Phil, who passed away last year. Dad was an endless learner, excited about new things and places, with a fantastic memory so that he could share the knowledge with others later. He held many jobs and was always so well liked because he was skilled, a hard worker, and genuine. Although we used to joke that Dad only did well with the edges of the age spectrum, children and elderly, he was actually great with most everyone. He was a kind man, a good man, treating people well and helping where he could. People responded to that. They wanted to be his friend. Mom and Dad were married nearly 56 years. As I am sure Mom would attest to, that marriage required work at times. The love they held for each other was never in question. Mom and Dad supported each other. They supported Trevor and me. And when we had children, they endlessly supported their grandchildren in the same style. Mom and Dad traveled the world together, as excited about a trip a couple of hours away as one to another country, sharing their love of new adventures with us. Dad took things in stride, and that was often even more evident on trips when the unexpected always seems to happen. He was calm, never rattled, just adapted and kept it moving. What a great lesson for Trevor and me, one I try hard to put into practice in my own life and model for my own children. Mom and Dad also showed us how rich life can be when you expand the word family to include so many more people. What a gift. Dad loved living. He liked the little things like the odd flavors of Peeps or Oreos or M&Ms that showed up in stores over the years. He liked to collect, as we all know, including items we'd never thought collectible: insulators, egg beaters, the metal handles from radiators. Dad showed us why they were interesting and how to display them in a way that worked. He loved being outdoors, loved fixing things, could repair or refinish just about anything. If you needed something, a desk chair, a lamp, a bed, a traffic light, Dad likely had one, or three. When I think about my dad, the most resounding theme of our relationship is that he was always there. He was there for me as a kid, hounding him to stop working outside and take my friend and me to the pool on a hot summer day. My dad couldn't swim, and this was long before the age of cell phones to pass the time. He just took us there and waited while we played. Dad was there to teach me math and how to read a map, to pull me in for a hug when life got hard, to join me in singing Beach Boys or Alan Jackson songs too loudly in the car, to daydream with 7-year-old me about what we would do if we won the lottery, a dollhouse or a canopy bed for me, a sports car for him. He was there when I didn't ask, like when he met my husband and me at the airport late one evening after I broke my ankle in Florida, just to sit with me in baggage claim while my husband got the car. Or showing up at Children's ER on Easter Sunday when I took our youngest in for pneumonia, just in case I needed help. Dad loved me so much. He loved Mom, he loved Trevor. When we got married, he embraced our growing families with that same expansive love, spending time getting to know my husband, Jeff, and my sister-in-law, Lisi, and their families in the US and Brazil. When he had grandchildren, Dad flourished. He was there for trips, swim lessons, baseball games, horseback riding lessons, and countless hours reading books or watching cartoons with a child on his lap. He was there to care for them when they were sick, to distract them when they were upset, and to let them climb on him when they had energy to burn. Dad was an early riser and would start the coffee on those vacation mornings when I was awake before dawn with a small child, bringing me a cup and settling in near me to play with his grandchild. Watching him play silly games or share his excitement about things he enjoyed, like fossil hunting, animals, steam trains, pressed pennies with a new generation, created memories for them and for their parents that I will always be grateful for. He was an amazing father, an amazing grandfather, and an amazing man. He lived his life well, trying new things, taking care of his family, being present and helpful again and again. These past few months were so hard on him, on his spirit. He can rest now. I think Dad knows how much he was loved. I hope so. I miss you, Dad.
We wrote these two texts separately, but I think you'll find a lot of similarities in these. My dad, 2 words that I've used so many times in life, too many to count. Who taught me how to use tools and put together a proper toolbox? Who taught me that learning to do things myself would serve me well in life? Who taught me that peanut butter and Velveeta sandwiches are a thing? And pretty darn good. My dad. They are two simple words, but they have had as much an impact on my life as anything ever will. Words that have guided me, given me strength and confidence, and will forever be a part of who I am. They are, of course, more than words. My dad definitely saw to that. And in his quiet, laid-back way, taught me so much about life and how to be a good person and a good father. Who taught me that actions can be a substitute for words and are often more meaningful. Who taught me that getting worked up over things is just not worth it most of the time. Who taught me that if you have a white van without side windows, you could pretty much get anywhere that is restricted or private, and no one's going to ask any questions. My dad. My father touched many people. He was very generous with his time and energy and truly liked helping people in any way he could. And he could help people in more ways than anyone I've ever known. He had many different jobs and interests in life, and I was always struck by how much he was liked wherever he went, and how he seemed to develop meaningful, lasting friendships with such diverse people. Who taught me that egg beaters, Band-Aid containers, electric insulators, etc., 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 are collectible and fun to look at. Who taught me that train whistles, like Morse code, communicate different information based on their combination of short and long sounds. For example, at a train crossing, you'll hear a train with 2 long whistles, followed by 1 short whistle, followed by another long whistle. Who taught me that this country has rich and diverse history and culture that is best learned about by visiting as many places in person as you can. My dad. My father loves kids. Even before he became a grandfather, it always amazed me at how quickly babies and children responded to him. They picked up on how genuine he was immediately, and I think he just had a uniquely kind and playful soul that kids found to be so much fun and fascinating. He loved his grandchildren, and it was beautiful to watch his relationship with them and theirs with him. It's hard to explain, but even to the last time I saw him, his kind soul comforted me, recharged me, and there's never been a time that I didn't feel like a kid, and a very, very lucky kid when I was with him. Who taught me that if you find a blue t-shirt that is comfortable, you buy 20 of them, and you wear them every single day. Because at the end of the day, comfort and ease trumps style or anything else that's not important to you. Who is one of my greatest role models, someone who I strive to emulate in so many ways. Who will I miss terribly every single day for the rest of my life? My dad. I'm extremely proud to say that Kenneth Norman Schumacher was my dad, and I love him immensely. I will celebrate him for the rest of my life and take comfort that the many of his wonderful qualities will live in those that were close to him, most beautifully his grandchildren. My dad was a great man, lived a great life, and made a meaningful impact on the world around him, more so than he realized or would willingly acknowledge. I would say rest well, but knowing him after spending the last few weeks in bed, he's already fixing a toilet, changing out some light fixtures, and probably planting some trees and flowers up in heaven while sipping on an endless can of Diet Pepsi. But Dad, if you do find the time, please rest well. Reflect on the wonderful life you made. Take pride in all the friends and family alike that you've touched. You definitely deserve it. You definitely earned it. I love you.
And we have some words as well from Ruth's brother, Harold Dukes.
I really appreciate all the words of the rabbi and the kids, what they said. We don't really think often about death, although I'm getting closer there, so I think about it more. But we don't. Why don't we think about it much? Because we don't know much about it, But we do know some things. There is a life after this life. We're pretty sure of that, scientifically, religiously, common sense. But Ken, I used to joke around. I didn't really tell anybody this joke, so maybe it's not even funny. I think that's why I didn't say it, but I thought, I don't want people to be sad when I die, so I'll leave a big mess. And, well, I'm not going to approach what Ken did, There is another way. If you're rich, you can leave a lot of money. They're not going to be all, they're going to be half sad, half happy, they got this money. But Ken had a rule about collecting things. It had to be very heavy. My wife has the same rule. There's nothing worth doing if it isn't heavy. Either heavy physically or heavy some other way. A lot of work. I was sort of like, I have this idea. Somebody told us we could buy houses in Dayton. So I mentioned it to my wife. So suddenly we're buying houses to rent them out. I was just like, it's a nice idea. I don't really want to do it, but we wound up doing it. Ken was a very, very special man. But I personally, there's a principle in Judaism, and it's probably in every religion, hakarat hatov. You recognize the good. But for me, Ken did a lot of good. After our parents died young, he was like a father to me. He taught me the tools, literally tools. My dad did also, but I was only 13, 14. I didn't know how to use them as well. I knew a little bit, but he taught me the tools of getting into life, and it wasn't easy. This was the 70s when they made cars like, junk. They sold you a toolkit with the car, So I'm very grateful for all the tools that he gave me. And he knew things like, we're talking about how to get rid of his stuff. Well, Ken would know that. We don't know it. So it's a sad time. I'm glad he's not in pain. They say in, I think, the Gemara, the Talmud, there's like 800 ways to die, and he didn't die in a very painful way, thank God. And and I see that Jeff is, he helped when my mom died, he helped my mom. When my dad died, he helped my mom. And I'm watching Jeff now, he's helping Ruth the exact same way. So goodbye, Ken, I'll miss you.
And Dr. Patty Perry, sister in heart and dear friend.
Good morning. I've been a friend of Ken and Ruth's for over 25 years. During COVID, and especially this last 6 months, I had the opportunity to be present with Ken and witness what would be his final thoughts about this earthly journey. Today I have the privilege of speaking about Ken and will share some of my observations and his own thoughts in quieter moments. I was his self-appointed president of the fan club, and I reminded him about it all the time. In those last months, he reflected a good deal on his own family and joyful family times. For example, he reminisced about a trip many years ago with his wife and children out west, where they unexpectedly got snowed in. Ken, being his creative and resourceful self, found some discarded cardboard by the garbage can where they were staying. He used the cardboard for makeshift sleds, and it allowed the family to spend a rollicking afternoon on the hillside. It was the simple skills of being in the moment, making the best of a difficult or unexpected situation, and generously sharing his talents with those around him that were the hallmark of his being in the world. I could speak more about his qualities and share memories, but Ken was a humble man and he wouldn't appreciate this. However, because he shied away from more directly sharing his feelings and he left us too soon, I want to share what else I heard. I would not represent him fully if I did not speak about what was in his heart, about those closest to him, those who comforted him in his last days. To know and love Ken was to know and love his family. To his wife, Ken would want his wife to know that he was dedicated to their lives together, like he was dedicated to his garden. He was endlessly in nature and working in the yard. Ken and Ruth complemented each other. She was the perfumed fragrance and vibrant hues to his deep-rooted perennial flowers. To his son, Ken would want his son to know that he was proud of the example he set. His son had embodied lovingly caring for his own family. He was proud of his son's provision for his family, care for their ills, parenting their child from the dependency of infancy to the independence of being in the world, and tending to Ken's own mother in her own advanced age. To his daughter, Ken would want her to know that though he trusted her judgment, he remains ever present as an anchor and guide for her. He would want to be metaphysically by her side in this ever-changing and challenging world of decisions and choices. In the principle of conservation of energy, no energy in the universe is created or destroyed, only changed. All his energy, every vibration, every wave of every particle, remains in the world, lovingly surrounding her. And to his extended family and friends, Ken would not be so forward, but I will be, to offer what I see as his legacy for their reflection. To be generous with your time and wisdom, to remain humble and unassuming, to listen deeply to others, to value everything for its purpose, even if that purpose is yet undiscovered, and to let no one be a stranger in your company. Thank you.
And next, a work colleague, Kim Kunkel, will be delivering some words from some of his colleagues.
Good afternoon. This is from our dear friend Maureen, who's not able to make it. It all started at a small tax office in Fairborn. As office manager, I was preparing for a new season. Being 9 months pregnant, I was wasting no time getting things organized when in walked our new hire, Ken. He picked up on my urgency and immediately began helping me put the office order, which proved very helpful as less than 2 weeks later, I was on leave giving birth to a baby girl. So right from the start, we got along great and teamed up well, even though there were significant differences in our working styles. Ken was precise, logical, and patient in his approach to getting things done, while most of my decisions were experience-based, gut level, and quick. It was take your time, do things right the first time, versus been there, done that, let's cut the corners. I don't know how our differences approaches to work and life resulted in such good working relationship, but they did. And it also resulted in a strong friendship that spanned for more than 41 years. In reflection, I'm sure Ken's patient, composed demeanor, when confronted with my somewhat hurried manner, it was what made it a complementary relationship that worked so well. Our friendship continued to grow even after I retired from the tax profession more than 3 years ago and remained in Wisconsin year-round. We communicated regularly, shared stories about family, life, and of course, old tax office adventures. During the week before Ken passed, I had the good fortune to be in Fairborn and spend the better part of an afternoon with him. We talked comfortably, had a few smiles about old times, and enjoyed the moment. It was a beautiful reflection of our friendship and left me with a few more cherished memories. Ken, This is our new chapter in our friendship. Thanks for the memories, my friend. Always in my heart, Maureen.
And we have some words from individuals as well. Individuals who either were not able to be here but sent their love, and some who are here and just wanted to hear their thoughts. Carol and Don Skin say, here are a few things we remember about Ken. Number one, Ken was working at NCR. Don was talking to him one day, and Ken said that NCR was throwing out a lot of old notebook binders. Don and Carol were helping with the Fairborn Marching Band that year, and the band needed binders to hold their marching placement sheets. So Ken provided all of these binders for all of the band members, and also several other groups around Fairborn. They were such a big help. Number two, sometimes Don needed an odd tool for a particular piece of equipment he was working on. It seemed like Ken always knew what was needed and just always magically had one of those, and he cheerfully lent it to Don. Number three, for many years, both Ken and Carol went to Springfield Extravaganza Flea Market at different times. They had some good discussions of things they found and tried to look out for things each of them was looking for. I know there are many, many more memories, but these come to mind. P.S. We planted Ken's daylilies out back, and one of them has a beautiful bloom.
All right, from Terry and Bill Cromie. As we ponder Ken's passing, I want to take this opportunity to tell you how important you are and have been in my life, Bill's, and the kids. We feel blessed to know you and call you our dear friend. From Carol and Rich Muller. Ken and Ruth and my wife Carol and I are a couple of friends with such long standing that I don't even remember how we met. Ken was like an older brother. I could talk about so many things we both enjoyed. He was a jack of all trades, and I was amazed at all the things that he did. The topper may have been how he had worked at one point making ice cream cones and could fix broken machinery for that. He could talk about railroading, every Midwestern little boy's dream, at every level, equipment to procedures. I imagine Ruth will be looking quite a while for all the put-puts he told me he collected. Ken was a great friend whom I didn't see frequently after I graduated from residency at St. Elizabeth's. We moved to San Jose, but we returned often to visit Carol's family in Indiana. Any drive back to Dayton was a pleasure because we'd enjoy Ken and Ruth's hospitality and the pleasure they took in meeting our children at that time. We enjoyed watching Trevor and Devin grow up and thrive. And anytime we all got together, he had the patience of a saint with all the talking that Ruth and Carol generated. I knew we could escape to the backyard and talk about the scraps that he recognized as treasure. From Penny Douglas. I have known Ken almost as long as Ruth has. He was always kind and polite to me. He didn't even seem to mind my visits when Ruth and I talked into the wee hours. He will be missed by all who knew him.
And finally, from Marlene Byerly. I've known Ken and Ruth since she joined the Wright State faculty over 50 years ago. We have rejoiced together as children and grandchildren were born, and we mourned as parents have left us. Ruth and I have waved goodbye to Ken as we left their house to travel the world or simply enjoy a movie and a meal at one of our favorite restaurants. The latter he considered an unnecessary luxury. His face always said, "Good, sometime alone." Ken was the king of introverts, so the stories I remember are more Ruth's stories and her telling of Ken's reaction to them. So I have decided to share a slightly edited poem that I wrote upon the death of my own mother. It was my tribute to this man that so many of us knew and loved. For Ken. Today is a day of contemplation, a day of endless sorrow and endless joy, a remembrance of a life lived, and a life lost. Who was this man? What purpose did he serve? We remember his fierce independence and how he cherished it in the end when he preferred death to losing it. We remember his integrity, his passion for faith, fairness and truthfulness, for honesty and hard work. We remember his biting sense of humor, his gruff exterior, and his impatience. He neither lived a perfect life nor expected it of others. He supported others as they make their own mistakes and upheld their right to make them. What purpose did he serve? We loved him as a caring father, a loving grandfather, a faithful friend and relative. Rejoice amid your tears and remember the joy, the kindness and the laughter which he brought to each of us. What greater purpose can one life have than this? And so we return to our liturgy. One of the beauties, I believe, of the Jewish prayer cycle and this liturgy is that at this moment where we've shared such beautiful memories, we are so aware that he is with us, that everything he gave is permanent and with us, and it is his soul that has only left our midst. And so the first Jewish prayer that we say is El Malei Rachamim Shochein Bamromim, compassionate source of all that is, who is present in the heavens. You take the soul of our beloved Kenneth under your holy and glorious wings that shine in the sky. In the name of the soul of our loved one who has come under your care, we pray. Compassionate one, provide rest for the soul of our loved ones in Gan Eden, in the perfect garden, and never withdraw your protective wings from his soul, which is now collected in the bond of life. God is his everlasting inheritance and peaceful resting place. And we say amen. And we move now to us. We move to what remains, which is his survivors. And we know that we are to say the Kaddish prayer, which is a prayer that speaks about life, not death, and that says we are going to take one moment every day of the coming year and reserve it for him. And whether you say the Kaddish prayer, or you go outside and enjoy nature, or you fix something with woodwork, or you contemplate a train, whatever you do, it will be your daily reminder that our fists of anger and wanting to hold on will slowly release, and we will take care of his memory and cherish it and keep him here and keep his family together. And that's what the Jewish tradition says the Kaddish prayer is. They say it's a spiritual hand clasp between the generations, which is a bridge from his life to all of ours. And so we rise together for these ancient and hallowed words, the Kaddish prayer. Those who know them, please join along. Yit gadal v'yit kadash shemei rabbah, v'alma divrach chirute v'yamlich malchute, v'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chaye dekol beit Yisrael, v'agala uv'izman kariv vimru. Amen. Yehei shemei rabbo mevorach leolam ulolmei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpoar v'yitroman v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudesha b'richu la'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbachata v'nechemata da'amiran bi'ama v'imru amen. Yehei shalom rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Osei shalom b'mromav Hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May the one who makes peace in the high heavens bring peace down to us, to our world, to Israel, to this mourning family, to all peoples, as we say amen, and we are seated. And so to Ken, we send you on with love in our hearts, crying tears of joy for the life you lived, praising the source of life for connecting our lives. We send you on to the next life. We send you on the way you lived, embracing who you were, not the space you leave, praising the source of life for allowing us to love. We send you on to the next life. We send you on without fear. We will not curse or rend our garments. Praising the source of life for granting us time, we send you on to the next life. We send you on with praise, singing songs of joy for all creation, praising the source of life for making us flesh and blood. We send you on to the next life. We send you on with libations and toasts, drinking to health, drinking to memory, praising the source of life for giving us words to share. We send you on to the next life. We send you on with stones, not flowers. We do not add death to death, praising the source of life for all creation. Together, we send him on to the next life. And so the family asks that we join them for a small meal of condolence in our 11 hall following this service, that we can drink to him, hear some of his music, and enjoy the words and the memories that we all share. Following that, the family will be sitting Shiva, so to speak, in their home. They will gather back at 107 East Emerson Avenue from about 2:30, we believe, to 5-ish. And so we ask if people want to continue or go on or come by to share their memories, that we can indeed remember this wonderful man. And so do we pray. Adonai oz la'amo yitain. May God give strength to us all. Adonai yivarech et amo v'shalom. May God now heal this family with the comforting shelter of shalom, of peace. Amen. The family will make their way to Levin Hall, and then we are all hopefully able to enjoy them and join them. And everyone else, if you will go through the back door and take a left, you will find